Welcome to February 12th, 2026. When you or a loved one has suffered serious harm, look to Wyoming's board-certified truck accident lawyer, Grant Lawson, leading the charge for accountability and fighting for safer roads. Don't settle for anything less. Visit truckaccidents.com. Well, really, the story for the rest of this week, next week, is going to be this big West Coast trough and little waves that eject out ahead of it. But we're once again kind of getting into a pattern that's sticky, meaning it's just going to kind of set up and be the same weather pattern for a while. Now, we still have a stretched out trough of Pacific low pressure extending into the Rockies today. It's got a lot of moisture with it, but not a lot of cold air. So we're going to be looking at this system coming through, and then a small little wave detaches from the main wave, comes out of Southern California, moves across the Southern Rockies and Southern Plains as we get into Friday and the weekend, bringing wet to some of you in the Southern Rockies and the Southern Plains as we get into the weekend, while the rest of the West is kind of in between systems. The upper low just gets recharged by more waves coming in off the North Pacific. However, instead of getting a big push inland, these waves just kind of go down the West Coast and settle off the coast of California. But one of the bigger chunks of energy that does get ejected from the low is going to come across the area Tuesday and Wednesday. So there is going to be some pretty good high country snow, and there's going to be a little bit of weather getting out across some areas of the plains, mainly biased to the northern areas. We'll show you that here in a minute. And then through all of next week, the western United States is under this very broad, very large trough of low pressure with the center of the cold and the center of the most active weather still just wanting to be right along the west coast. But we did have a lot of clouds that kind of had a spring-like look to them yesterday. In fact, we did have a snow squall warning yesterday evening for parts of southern Wyoming as like a spring-like snow squall developed, mainly out in the rural areas, but did affect some sections of Interstate 80 around Arlington and Elk Mountain last night. So those clouds showing the Pacific moisture as they have moved on in. Nice shot there. The high cirrostratus clouds coming in, pushing a sundog there in Utah. Then the Ferris Mountains getting shrouded in some snow shower activity yesterday. Then we've got a few shots from Arizona. Good shot there from Yuma. The Grand Canyon showing a lot of cirrostratus clouds moving on in. And then the Arizona poppies blooming down in Arizona as well. Yeah, there's some snow. Yep. Always good to have verification that somebody got some snow. This is part of that California storm system into Mono Lake, California. And California is going to be a big winter in winter precipitation here in the coming days ahead as these Pacific storms are going to really focus along the west coast. Satellite imagery this morning, kind of the same situation. There's not as many clouds as what we saw yesterday, but there's a lot of moisture with the upper level low. You can see a little bit of the energy there in northeastern Utah. And this is all getting stretched out. And when it gets stretched out like this, you really disperse the energy. But the moist flow coming in from the southwest is going to continue to feed moisture off the west coast inland. So this is going to be producing some high elevation snows and keeping the weather pattern active, but no connection to Canadian air. So a Pacific air mass continues to dominate. And really that's going to be the case through the weekend and early next week. It's Pacific, and if it's Pacific air, you're not going to get really cold, but the Pacific air is moist. As we get into Saturday, that low that's there over near Tahoe slides across New Mexico, goes into Oklahoma and Texas there, and does produce a nice little swath of precipitation of rain and snow, as we'll show you here in a minute, across the southern plains and the southern Rockies. Notice the configuration that we've got here. We've got the high that's here in the eastern Pacific and this low that's going to come on in and just settle in off the west coast. Again, we're going back to the discussion of ridge axes and where the low pressure systems are going to be. So the ridge axis, which has been really a big dominant player this winter, it's either been out here or it's been here And for areas that are along and east of 25 that really need precipitation out of the plains, you really need the ridge axis here. And right now it's here. So you can see that it kind of is jumping around, but it really is going to want to stay here on the trough axis in this vicinity here as we go through the weekend and into early next week. So we're getting the high a little bit closer to where it needs to be to get things more into the central United States, but we're not there yet. So as we go into Monday, you can see the high is still there and the trough axis is right along the west coast. So southwest flow keeps Pacific air into the Rockies and the high plains into early next week, keeping temperatures above average across the southern plains and across most of the central and west central United States. It's only where the onshore flow is going to be in the Pacific Northwest and in the California where it's going to be colder than average, pumping in that moisture. And you can see between now and Monday, the heavier moisture will be in California, the Pacific Northwest. This is part of the elongated trough that's coming through today and into tomorrow. So Utah's mountains, Colorado's mountains, going to get a little bit more precipitation. There for the weekend, you can see as that low comes out, Kansas, Texas, Oklahoma going to get some nice precipitation. Parts of New Mexico and Arizona, a little bit of moisture as well. And then again, this square area, which we've been highlighting here lately, continues to just not get anything the way the pattern is right now. And there's your snowfall through Monday. Now into next week, look familiar? Ridge axis remains there. Trough axis remains here. Broad southwest flow pumping in that mild air off the Pacific for a lot of the nation, making it very mild as we get into the early parts of next week. This guy right here is going to get ejected to the northeast. So if we're going to see some weather early next week, get off the west coast, it's going to be as we get into late Tuesday and Wednesday. And another way to represent it, a map that we use to watch the weather is something that's called vorticity, where you have a spinning column of air that's rising, spinning column of air that's colder, unstable, and is going in a counterclockwise fashion, basically like a low pressure system as you'd expect. But these vorticity waves are really what produce the precipitation, and they produce precipitation out ahead of them. So the vorticity highlights that we see here in colors represent two areas of vorticity as we get into early next week. The main trough coming down the west coast and this next one that gets ejected. So when you get precipitation forming ahead of these waves, you get precipitation that forms ahead of them like this. This wave gets ejected and comes right across the central Rockies into the northern plains Tuesday afternoon, Tuesday night, and Wednesday. So you're going to see a band of rain and snow get ejected off the west coast and come through. And by Tuesday night into Wednesday morning, there it is. It gets pushed out across the divide and goes into the northern plains. We are likely going to see some winter weather right here with this system as it gets ejected, probably with a chance of snow, as you'll see here in a minute. And then here we have another vorticity situation coming in right here. And so these will be rotating through the trough. But again, this is by Tuesday night. Ridge is in the exact same place. Ridge and trough axis, again, exactly in the same place again. This is your precipitation through the 3-day period of Monday through Thursday. So this is with the secondary wave. So notice we've got more rain and snow in California. More precipitation comes in along and west of the divide. Good there. You see this area of moisture right here? That's with that wave that comes in Tuesday night and Wednesday. And we could end up with a bit of a snow event up here. We'll just have to see as this develops. But for Montana, North Dakota, South Dakota, northeastern Wyoming, we'll kind of watch this area for Tuesday night and Wednesday of next week as some wintry weather. Nothing down here, again, because everything is back too far west. When we take a look at the snowfall totals through next Thursday morning, so over the next week, you can continue to see along and west of the divide. I wanted to highlight this area right here. You can see some pretty impressive snow amounts along the North Dakota-Canadian border with that secondary wave Tuesday night, Wednesday. So we'll put a kind of a watchful eye on this area towards that Tuesday night, Wednesday timeframe of next week. Otherwise, if you're along and west of the divide, you're going to have a lot of showers, you're going to have a lot of clouds, you're going to be cooler through the middle of next week. By late next week, Same thing. It's amazing, isn't it, how things have gotten stuck this winter. So the ridge is still there, the trough is still here, but we will have another ejection as we get into probably Thursday night and Friday of another wave coming through, kind of like what's going to come through Tuesday night and Wednesday. That one will probably travel further south than the one Tuesday night and Wednesday. So if you're in the far west, you're going to be wet. Have yourself a good Thursday. We'll see you tomorrow.